Have you ever been under like a massive deadline at work and you're just completely stressed out and suddenly you feel this overwhelming, almost irrational urge to just throw yourself on the floor and act like a literal toddler?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Just a full-blown tantrum.
Right. And you think, well, I'm just being immature, but that urge to throw a tantrum actually isn't a sign of immaturity at all.
No, it's really not.
According to Pamela Levin's foundational book, Cycles of Power, it's actually a sign that your biological check engine light is on.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, so today for our deep dive, we're completely ripping up this idea that human development is just a straight line, and we're looking at why your childhood scripts are secretly sabotaging your adult goals.
And, I mean, it's a profound shift in perspective,
Hmm.
largely because everything in our modern world, it dictates that growing up is this strict one-way street.
Oh, totally.
We treat aging like a factory production line. So you start as raw material, you move from station to station.
Like school, career, marriage.
Exactly. You get assembled, and you just discard the past.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be this finished product at the end of the line.
Right, a finished product. But reading through Levin's work and the sources for this deep dive, the argument is that we're actually much more like a garden.
Yes, I got it.
Because a garden doesn't just, build a tomato and call it a day. It cycles through seasons over and over again. But to even grasp what Levin means by these seasons of life, it seems like we have to completely dismantle our Western concept of time.
We really do. And, we can start by just looking at the hard science of chronobiology.
Which is the study of internal clocks, right?
Yeah, internal clocks in biological organisms. Because we already accept that we are cyclical creatures on a micro level. I mean, we have circadian rhythms.
Right, the 24-hour cycles.
Exactly. Those govern our heart rate, our cortisol levels, digestion, our general vigor throughout the day. So Levin takes that biological reality and she just scales it up.
Okay, scales it up how?
Well, she points out that the larger unfolding pattern of our entire life is just as rhythmic as, say, the water cycle moving from ocean to vapor to rain, or even the 28-day lunar cycle. Human psychological development mirrors that natural recycling.
And the text mentions that this is something ancient traditions just always understood, right?
Aye.
Long before chronobiology was even a recognized scientific field.
Oh, definitely.
Like the Native American medicine wheel and the I Ching are brought up as examples.
Yes, and the distinction there is in how those ancient cultures actually applied that knowledge compared to our modern failure to do so.
Right.
The I Ching, which is this ancient book of Oriental wisdom, it actually states, all movements are accomplished in 6 stages, and the 7th brings return.
7th brings return.
Yeah. And ancient cultures structured their entire communities around this concept. They built fallow periods, rest and reflection, right into their societal expectations because they observe nature.
Right.
You don't demand fruit from a tree in the dead of winter.
Which brings us to this kind of cultural conspiracy that Levin points out. She states anthropologists and psychologists like Ashley Montagu and Charlotte Buehler.
Yes, fascinating work.
And they argue that Western industrial culture actively suppresses these natural cyclic rhythms, right?
Absolutely. Because if you view humanity purely through the lens of industrial commerce,
Just maximizing output.
exactly, then natural youthfulness and cyclic rhythms, which require downtime, play, emotional maintenance, they're incredibly unproductive to that system.
Right. The factory doesn't want you to take a break and play.
No. So they're culturally suppressed in favor of just constant linear output. Montague actually argues that human beings are biologically intended to remain childlike.
Wait, really? Intended to?
Yes, in a state of unending flexible development. But Buehler notes that when we suppress these natural rhythms to just serve an industrial machine, people inevitably end up feeling completely empty.
Empty and inauthentic.
Exactly. Slowly alienated from their own nature.
Okay, I understand the critique of industrial society there, but I have to play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure, go for it.
I imagine a lot of people listening to this deep dive might be thinking, isn't acting like a kid as an adult objectively a bad thing?
I mean, it's a fair question.
Because society tells us to put away childish things for a reason. Like, if a negotiation isn't going my way at the office, I can't just start crying and asking for a snack,
Right, and that is a really vital distinction to make. We have to separate unhealthy, stunted regression from healthy, natural recycling.
Okay, break that down for me.
So Levin explains that natural recycling is essentially nature's maintenance schedule. When you naturally cycle back through a developmental stage, it provides this scheduled healing period.
Like a detox.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mechanism that allows your psyche to flush out old emotional toxins, bring in fresh psychological nutrients, and actually heal old scars.
So it's productive.
Highly productive. Healthy regression is returning to your foundation, to rebuild and reinforce it. But unhealthy regression, which is what we all fear, and what you were just talking about with the snack.
Yeah, the office tantrum.
Right. That happens when you are permanently stuck in childish behavior because you never actually completed that developmental stage in the first place.
Oh, that makes a ton of sense. You're stuck not visiting. So if life is this repeating cycle of seasons, what are the specific stages we keep looping through? Because Levin doesn't just offer this as a vague metaphor, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
She maps out a very specific psychological architecture.
Yeah.
She outlines 6 fundamental stages, and she uses these great botanical analogies to explain the mechanism of our growth.
Okay, lay them out for us.
So rather than just a timeline, it helps view these stages as a progression from pure existence to physical exploration and finally to complex social identity.
Got it.
The first anchor is the power of being. This is from birth to about 6 months. In this stage, you are a newly planted seed. The mechanism of growth here isn't action at all. It's reception.
You're just taking things in.
Exactly. Your job is simply to exist, to be touched, to take in nourishment, and to establish the fundamental belief that you have a right to be here.
It's like pure baseline security.
Yes.
But eventually, I mean, a seed has to do something, right? Which brings in the friction of the next phases.
Exactly. And that friction is what creates stages 2 and 3, which are the power of doing and the power of thinking.
Okay.
So from 6 months to roughly 3 years old, you are a sprouting shoot. First, you explore the physical world through your senses, touching, tasting, moving around.
Just pure exploration.
Right, and then you develop unique traits and start to push away from that early dependency. This is where the infamous toddler no comes in.
Ah, the terrible twos.
Yes, which, based on this framework, aren't terrible at all. They're a biological imperative.
Because if a child doesn't learn to push back.
Exactly. If they don't test reality, they can never establish where they end and another person begins.
Wow.
That boundary setting is the absolute mechanism of individuation. I mean, without the ability to say no, you literally cannot think for yourself.
Okay, so after we learn to say no, what's next?
Once that boundary is established, we move into the harvest phases. That's stages 4, 5, and 6. The power of identity, the power of being skillful, and the power of regeneration.
And this is what age range?
This spans from about age 3 all the way through 18.
Okay.
You open up like a flower and eventually develop fruit. So you figure out who you are in relation to others, you learn complex skills, you make mistakes, you argue to create your own personal values.
Teenage rebellion, basically.
Exactly. And finally, you unify your personality to face the world on your own terms.
You know, reading this, the whole thing reminded me of an OS update, like on your phone.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Because re-entering a childhood stage as an adult is just like updating your smartphone's operating system. When a major update is released, you don't throw away the phone.
Right, the hardware stays the same.
The hardware remains. But you have to completely revisit the absolute core system, the foundational code, to patch up security bugs and install more sophisticated features.
Yes, exactly.
Because if you try to run complex new adult applications on an unpatched toddler operating system, the whole device is just going to crash.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. You are returning to the foundation specifically to support heavier, more sophisticated adult processing loads.
The OS update makes perfect sense. You patch the bugs. But, you know, looking around at the world, a lot of us are walking around with heavily corrupted software.
Oh, massively corrupted.
So if nature designed this perfect recycling system to keep us updated and healthy, who is writing the malware?
Well, to understand the malware, Levin introduces a concept called cycle sabotage.
Cycle sabotage.
Yeah, and she draws heavily on psychiatrist Eric Berne's concept of psychological scripts for this. Berne theorized that as children, we essentially act as the authors of our life play. We use this naive, incredibly primitive logic of childhood to write a survival script based purely on how our parents react to us.
And then we carry that into adulthood.
Exactly. As adults, we act as the casting directors. We unconsciously seek out spouses, friends, and bosses to play the roles of our parents.
Just so we can keep playing out the script.
Yes. Even if that script is an absolute tragedy, we want the familiarity.
So if one childhood reaction to, say, a chaotic environment is to armor up and grow up way too fast.
Right.
I imagine the flip side of that script is the person who just refuses to grow up at all, like the person who weaponizes helplessness.
You nailed it. Those are the exact two primary deviations that Levin identifies. The first is that decision to hurry up and grow up.
Okay.
This often happens to infants in stage 1 who lacked protection.
Hmm.
With that primitive toddler logic we talked about, they conclude that depending on others literally equals danger. So as adults, they bypass vulnerability entirely. They become super rigid, they refuse to trust anyone, and they mask all their underlying fear with anger.
And the second deviation?
The decision to say little.
Right.
These are children who lacked structure and limits later on in their development. They decide they are fundamentally inadequate. So as adults, their survival mechanism is just getting others to do things for them.
Because they don't trust themselves to do it.
Exactly. They avoid decisions, they suppress their anger, and they mask it with constant confusion. I don't know how to do this. Can you help me?
And the source material really stresses that this isn't just about, feeling unfulfilled at work or having a messy dating life.
No, not at all.
This cycle sabotage actually takes a severe physiological toll on the body.
It absolutely does.
There's this story in the text about a man named Bill. He's 42, he's on his third marriage, and he claims he really wants intimacy, but he secretly sabotages it by refusing to communicate.
Right, the silent treatment.
Yeah, he just expects his wife to magically read his mind, and when she doesn't, he retreats. But the critical detail here is that Bill's emotional suppression is actually manifesting as asthma.
Yeah, and the mechanism there is just fascinating, but also heartbreaking. Bill is shutting down his feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is actively resisting opening the door to his problems.
Yeah.
Well, physiologically, asthma is a constriction of the airways. It's an inability to take in a full breath or release it smoothly.
Wow, okay.
So by limiting his emotional expression, he is signaling his sympathetic nervous system to remain in a state of chronic low-grade tension.
Which directly limits his bodily functions.
Exactly. The physical holding of breath literally mirrors the emotional holding back.
That mind-body connection is so intense, but the text actually goes even further into the biology, looking at how our cells behave, right?
Yes, Levin uses a very provocative medical analogy regarding cancer cells to illustrate this.
Wait, cancer cells?
Yeah. So researchers have observed that patients with certain types of cancer produce a specific growth-inhibiting hormone. And when cancer cells are deprived of this specific substance in a lab setting, they actually stop behaving like cancer cells and revert to normal.
Are you serious? They just revert.
They revert because cancer, metaphorically speaking, is unchecked, linear growth that completely ignores the natural limits and cycles of the organism.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. So Levin implies that when we completely deny our natural developmental cycles, when we refuse to loop back to rest and to heal, we create a psychological environment that mimics that unchecked toxic linearity.
So we've got these primitive scripts written by our toddler selves, causing us to unconsciously sabotage our relationships and potentially wreaking havoc on our actual nervous systems and cells.
Basically, yeah.
So how do we debug this? If you're listening to this and sitting there realizing, oh man, I am running on malware, how do you find the specific bad line of code?
Well, Levin provides a really practical tool for this, and it's called the Developmental Script Questionnaire.
Okay, what does that do?
Because we usually repress the original household drama, we don't remember being infants. This questionnaire is designed to bypass our adult rationalizations.
Oh, clever.
It asks us to vividly imagine our parents' reactions to us at those 6 specific childhood stages we talked about.
Right, and the case study she uses for this is Dave Duncan. I really want to spend some time on Dave because his story is just incredibly relatable.
Oh, absolutely. Dave's a classic example.
He's this highly successful 50-year-old international executive. On paper, he is crushing it.
Totally.
But internally, he has this persistent, tight knot in his gut and a constant sense of inferiority.
Right. So Levin walks him through the questionnaire, and she asks Dave to imagine he's 4 months old, which is stage 1, the power of being.
The seed stage.
Exactly. So he's hungry, he's crying, he just wants to be held.
Yeah.
And Dave answers that his father wouldn't help, and his mother would literally watch the clock.
Oh, man.
Yeah, if it hadn't been exactly 4 hours since his last feeding, she would walk around the block for 4 hours just to avoid hearing him cry.
That is brutal. And as an infant, Dave's brain is processing that intense isolation.
Exactly. Dave realizes his takeaway as a baby was, if you cry long enough, you might eventually get fed, but it's a long, lonely, agonizing struggle.
So what did he conclude?
His ultimate survival conclusion was, it's better not to feel anything at all.
Wow.
He encoded a massive don't feel mandate right into his baseline operating system.
And then the questionnaire moves him to the toddler stage, right?
Yeah.
Stage 3, the power of thinking, where you have to learn to say no.
Right, the boundary setting.
And Dave recalls that asserting his own opinion or saying no would trigger his father's explosive anger.
Which is terrifying for a toddler.
Extremely.
Yeah.
So the lesson Dave internalized was that having boundaries is dangerous. He literally tells Levin wishy-washy is safe.
Yeah, wishy-washy is safe.
Yeah.
And then when we look at his teenage years, stage 6, he lacked the structure to finish growing up. His parents had essentially just checked out.
So he just had all these interrupted seasons.
Exactly. And because of that, Dave became what he calls a stoic 90%er.
The 90%er.
He works incredibly hard, but he physically struggles to fully finish things, whether it's a project at work or achieving true intimacy with a partner. He always leaves that last 10% undone.
Put yourself in Dave's shoes for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine Dave negotiating a multi-million-dollar contract in Tokyo. He's brilliant, he's totally prepared. But as the deal gets 90% done, his internal software crashes.
Right.
Why? Because closing the deal means saying no to certain terms, asserting his own reality to get it over the finish line. And his inner 4-year-old script is screaming that saying no will get him annihilated by an angry father figure.
That is exactly what's happening. The past is hijacking the present.
If you're listening to this, think about your own 90% block. What is that inexplicable thing you do that frustrates you, but you can't seem to stop doing it?
We all have one.
Dave's story proves that by tracing that block back to the specific season of development that was interrupted, we can finally make sense of it and dismantle it.
And this actually brings us to the crucial final step.
Okay, what is it?
Because just knowing the origin of the script isn't enough. I mean, if Dave just intellectualizes that his mom walked around the block, he still has that physical knot in his stomach during a negotiation.
Right, knowing isn't curing.
Exactly. We have to actively counter the negative internal voices that tell us we are inadequate.
Because those internal voices are ruthless.
They can literally be lethal. Levin shares the story of Mitch Salzman, who was a speech therapist, and his internal voice kept him under constant draining observation. It never allowed him to accept a compliment without internal punishment.
That seems exhausting.
It is. Or Bebop, a woman whose internal demands to be a perfect, flawless girl were so incredibly intense, she actually attempted suicide just to silence the screaming demands in her own head.
Oh my God.
That is the devastating power of negative childhood programming.
So how do we actually rewrite the code without, resorting to destructive measures?
The cure 11 prescribes is the deliberate use of affirming messages. Affirmations.
Affirmations.
You have to consciously replace the negative programming with messages that reinforce your adequacy and grant you permission to grow.
Okay, give me some examples.
So, if your underlying script says don't feel, like Dave's, your active affirmation becomes, it's okay for me to feel what I feel.
Simple but direct.
Right. If your script says stay little and helpless, your affirmation is, it's all right for me to get what I need. Other examples she uses are, my anger is okay, and simply, I am lovable.
Now, I know affirmations can sometimes sound a bit, cliche, like standing in front of a mirror giving yourself a pep talk.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way.
It can feel a bit hollow, but the science she brings in to back this up completely changed how I view them.
It really shifts it from self-help fluff to actual biological intervention.
Yes.
Levin notes these studies where positive phrases repeated to coma patients actually produced measurable changes in their cardiac and respiratory rates.
Think about the mechanism there.
It's mind-blowing.
When someone is in a coma, their conscious, critical mind, the part that says, oh, this affirmation is cheesy, is completely offline.
Exactly.
Yet when affirming messages are spoken, auditory processing centers feed that input directly into the autonomic nervous system.
The heart rate variability stabilizes.
The primal biology actually responds to safety.
Yes.
That is incredible. By deliberately repeating these messages, even when our conscious mind wants to reject them, we are sending signals to our deepest biological system.
You're rewriting the literal code.
Which means returning to stage 1, allowing yourself to just exist, rest, and repeat these affirmations isn't a sign of weakness at all.
No, not at all.
Going back to basics is a necessary maintenance cycle. It's how we patch the bugs in our operating system so we can run complex adult programs successfully.
And when we ally ourselves with this natural cyclic pattern, rather than fighting it out of some misplaced desire to always be productive.
Like the factory wants us to be.
Right. When we ally with nature, We draw immense strength from it. We can use our past limitations not as an excuse to maintain our problems, but as the precise blueprint for creating our solutions.
So, to bring it all together for you listening, human development is not a straight line from the delivery room to the grave. It is a series of returning seasons.
Beautifully said.
We loop back to the beginning to gather what we missed. By recognizing which stage we are currently cycling through, whether we need to just be or do or think, we can uncover our childhood malware.
We can see where we were forced to hurry up or stay little.
Exactly. And by applying specific targeted affirmations, we can rewrite the code and finally step into our full adult power.
It requires deep intentional work, as Bill realized with his marriages. You have to actively engage with your developmental seasons, but the capacity to heal and grow is always there, built right into the cycle.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We talked earlier about how our society is structured entirely around the linear industrial factory model, right?
Yeah, endless upward growth.
Endless upward growth, constant commerce, and emotional suppression.
Hmm.
If that's the root of so much of our collective exhaustion and cycle sabotage, what would our world actually look like if we redesigned it?
Oh, wow.
What would our schools, our corporate workplaces, or even our marriages look like if they were intentionally built to support these 7 cyclical seasons of human nature?
That changes everything.
Imagine a workplace that actually built in a stage 1 season for pure rest, reflection, and nourishment, instead of just demanding endless stage 5 skillfulness until everyone just burns out.
It would completely redefine what it means to be a productive human being.
You've got a lot of unlearning to do, but tracing the seasons of your own life is the perfect place to start. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of cycles of power. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.